Hi everyone, welcome once again to tDL Live. We are live, it is 9 o'clock on the East Coast on Monday night, 9:02 to get technical there, starting a little late. If things look a little empty, my esteemed co-pilot Adam Ford is not here this evening. I'd like to say he's on assignment, but he's taking an early vacation from tDL Live. He earned the vacation time very quickly. Gary Seifert also not joining us. So, if you like what you're seeing now, you're in for more of it. Let's get started on the news. You know, this means a lot more news and a lot less banter, most likely. Although maybe I'll start talking to myself. But at any rate, last Monday on the show, we speculated on what might be announced by Apple coming up the next day. That would be last Tuesday for those of you keeping track. And in case you missed it, what it ended up being was refreshed, I should say, MacBooks and MacBook Pros. Nothing too terribly exciting, basically larger RAM by default and slightly faster processor speeds, although there actually are some speed tests, if you head over to Ars Technica, some speed tests indicating maybe the new machines are actually a little slower than the old machines. So keep an eye out for that. Now, of course, this week, some interesting events on the Apple calendar. Tomorrow, this might have been off your radar unless you're a diligent stockholder. Tomorrow is Apple's annual shareholder meeting in Cupertino. It also is a Tuesday, and every Tuesday so far this year, Apple has released some sort of new product. So we'll see if that holds true tomorrow as well. Not sure, I don't know. But what the shareholder meeting also means is that we have a pretty good chance of maybe hearing some extra details about the iPhone Software Developers Kit, which of course is the other announcement coming this week. Apple just barely missing their self-imposed February deadline, and they will be bringing us the SDK, or will they, more on that in a moment, on March 6th. So that's going to be this Thursday. Now, as speculated here last week, it does indeed look like the kit is not complete, and what folks will actually be getting will be sort of a beta or a not feature-complete look at the Software Developers Kit. Rumor has it that developers will have access to the phone, the Wi-Fi components, and the camera, but the dock itself will be off limits. So anyone who wanted to make hardware devices, you can't really use the Software Developer Kit to write the software to drive your hardware. Now, what we don't know are things like we don't know about Bluetooth. You know, will you be able to do new things with Bluetooth on the iPhone? For example, maybe pair it with more devices or pair it with your car if that's something your car allows you to do, but you can't do currently with the iPhone. So stay tuned for all of that on Thursday. And again, there might be some details that leak out tomorrow at the annual shareholders meeting. Of course, if you keep tDL on, and frankly, I don't know why you would other than the fact that it's fairly processor intensive and maybe you have other work to do, then tomorrow, if there's any breaking news about the Software Developer Kit, of course, we'll bring that to you. Now, other than the Software Developer Kit, annual shareholder meeting also means it's time for the proxy votes in which shareholders get to weigh in on some various issues, including the approval of the board members. Steve Jobs sits on the board in addition to being the CEO, which I always thought was a little strange, but this is a chance for shareholders to voice their pleasure or displeasure with that. But two other key questions are coming up. One involving some shareholders would like to see the establishment of a sustainability board, and basically a committee rather, board committee on sustainability. And essentially the board committee would be tasked with making sure that Apple withholds its publicly stated goals of becoming a more green company. Now, the official position from the company, the advised position on this, is to vote against it. My guess would be that their position is that they'll handle that, thank you, and don't really want another board that perhaps would see products ahead of time and that sort of thing. Or you could be a conspiracist and say that they just don't want to help the environment. Could be true too, I guess. And then the other matter also involves another advisory board. This is an advisory board on compensation. Now, some shareholders have been advocating for this just because they feel there should be an independent board that looks at things like the pay for the top executives. Maybe you think $1 for Steve Jobs is too much. This is your chance to voice that opinion. But seriously, again, my personal opinion, I think it doesn't hurt to have a second set of eyes, as it were, looking at those numbers and determining whether the bonuses and such are appropriate. Don't forget, you can send an instant message to tDL Live via AOL Instant Messenger or Apple's very own iChat. Moving along, Steve Wozniak, of course, no stranger here to tDL. For those of you who have been watching since back in the good old days of late November, or December rather, when we had the live Segway polo match with Steve Wozniak. And recently in Australia, Steve had some comments about the current Apple products, and the Woz is not exactly thrilled. A lot of his sentiments echo those of Guy Kawasaki, who you heard on an interview here on The Digital Lifestyle last week, 2 weeks ago actually. But basically he has mixed opinions on the Apple TV and MacBook Air, as well as the iPhone. His key iPhone complaint being the fact that it wasn't 3G out of the gate, although he really likes the user interface. And when it comes to the Apple TV, he says that it is, quote, a really good indication of the future of the world. I don't know if that's good or bad. He goes on to say that the remote is too simple. So maybe we're becoming too simple. I don't know. I'm not sure what his point is. And then the other key point he has with Apple TV is the new rental system. He's very disappointed that it's only a 24-hour rental once you start to watch the movie. And my apologies, if you've been watching the last few weeks, Adam Ford always gives us the update on whether Superbad is available for purchase from iTunes. I must be honest, he's not here, and I did not take the initiative to look into that. So that's something to look forward to next week. Also next week, it's the return of prizes and your chance to win. What could you win? Well, you'll have to tune in next week to find out. But pay attention this week, because just like last week, next week's question will deal with the previous week, this week's show. I made that far more complicated than I needed to. But basically, if you're not doing anything Mondays at 9 o'clock, you could be a big winner. Relatively good, big winner. Okay, so Steve Wozniak, not thrilled with recent Apple products. Guy Kawasaki, not real thrilled with Apple's recent products. Is there a trend here? Does anybody care? We'll see. I don't know. But that comes to us via MacNN, and just a reminder that, of course, all of the news we have on the show, if you want to learn more about it, it'll be in our show notes in the forum after the show is over. Pretty quickly after the show's over. I'll put it that way. Also, right before we went to air, some announcements this afternoon from Apple. Apple announcing, I know you've been waiting for this, GarageBand 4.1.2, nice, as well as Aperture 2.01. And both of these updates address stability issues, and who wouldn't want to be more stable? For those of you, anybody out there, show of hands, anybody out there into the steampunk world? No? Yes? That one in the back. Okay, great. For those of you not familiar, basically steampunk is a current art of sorts. It's an art. I don't want to get nasty emails. Basically, the concept behind steampunk is it's in an alternate world in which the evolution of computers went along with the industrial age. So around the turn of the century, let's say, if you could imagine that there were computers, what would they look like? They would have, like typewriter keys, the big keys and all that. I think you get the idea. But if you don't, we'll have some pictures, or at least a link to some pictures in the forums. But the point is that an enthusiast of the steampunk world by the name of Dave Veloz, or Veloz, or Velaz, or Velaz. Anyone back there? No? Okay. No one looked that up. Thank you. Has given the steampunk treatment to his very own Mac Mini, and as well as the keyboard, mouse, and monitor. So it's a pretty cool thing. You can check that out. Again, look for the show notes in the forum for the link. Which reminds me of an exciting upgrade. I always like to point out when we're doing something here that they don't do on the normal news shows. Look for an exciting upgrade next week. By this time next week, cross your fingers, kids. I hope to be able to actually show you pictures of things during the show. You wouldn't have to wait until the show notes to see the Steampunk Mac Mini. So, as if winning wasn't enough of a reason to tune in next week, you could see pictures. All right, let me check that off the list. I don't know about you, but I find that using a remote for the iPod, it's just too much trouble. You know, you have to hit the buttons on the remote, as you do with most remotes, but according to Engadget, some Japanese researchers are working on a Wink-based iPod interface. Now, for the flirtatious among us, this could create a problem, I suppose, but it's called the Komi-Kami switch. Komi-Kami. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly and not creating an international incident. That translates as temple switch, and essentially it's a unit you wear over your ear with a little sensor attached here to the temple that can tell when you wink and differentiate that from when you naturally wink. So the idea is you'll be able to use the wink of one eye to perhaps skip forward a track, maybe the other eye to go back a track. If nothing else, it should do wonders for the headache industry, I would think. I don't know. But if you like blinking and you like changing songs, this might be just what the doctor ordered. You might have to go see the doctor after you use it. I don't know. We've mentioned about the MacBook Air, our own concerns, our limitations about it, thoughts about, you know, is it good, is it bad? And so it seems that either people love it, or based on lukewarm reaction, Apple decided not to make as many, or maybe not put as many in the channel right now. Reports are showing that several Apple stores are out of stock, especially in the Northeast. And if you go on to the apple.com website, you'll find there's a 5 to 7 day wait for the MacBook Air on there as well. Now, there's always the possibility that maybe there's some sort of software update or something right around the corner, and they want to get those on the machines before they ship them out. But given that the MacBook Air just started shipping not very long ago, more likely it is indeed a demand issue. So what do you think? Is it due to maybe Apple underestimating demand? Is it too much popularity? Let us know what you think, tDL Live, or you can send an email to feedback@thedigital-lifestyle.tv. You can tell there'd be a lot of good banter right here if my co-host was here. I'm lost, what can I say? Speaking of Lost, that's one of the great shows available on the iTunes Music Store. And there is new content coming to the iTunes Music Store from none other than satellite radio provider XM. Now, you would think XM being a paid subscription service, they wouldn't really want to give their content away. But that's precisely what they're going to be doing. They've partnered with Apple to make certain XM programming available on iPods. Currently, there are 2 shows that are available in podcast form. And according to XM's CEO, Nate Davis, they'll be working on bringing more shows to iTunes. Now, before all the speculation starts about a merger or perhaps an XM playing iPod, Mr. Davis was also quick to say, quote, "I wouldn't call it a strategic relationship," end quote. I thought every business relationship had some strategy involved. But apparently, XM's current podcasts available, the 2 that are available right now, are in the top 10 downloads from iTunes. So it certainly seems like a popular way to get those shows out there. And of course, they're banking on the fact that you'll love them so much, you'll say, I wish I could pay so much a month to be able to see these shows and other shows, well, not see them, but hear shows on my satellite radio. So there you go. Just taking a look at some of the numbers regarding XM and Sirius, you know, they've been waiting for a merger approval, thumbs up, thumbs down from the government now, and that deadline just passed just a few days ago, and they've extended it another 2 months to continue the talks. That deadline is self-mandated by the 2 companies, so they can pretty much keep extending it until the shareholders have enough, but it doesn't look right now like the FCC is real thrilled to move forward with the merger, so we'll see what happens there. At Macworld this year, some people got a chance to check out the mod book. Now, this is from the folks at Axiotron, and they had mentioned it last year, and basically they've revised the tablet. Now, for those of you who think you can't get a Mac tablet, well, basically what Axiotron does, they take the guts of a MacBook and they put it inside a custom case with a screen on the front that is touch sensitive. So you can pick it up just like some of the tablet devices out there that serve as monitors and write directly on the screen with your stylus or what have you and use it as a tablet. So if you're waiting for that wonderful MacBook tab, as it were, it does exist, and Gizmodo had a chance to review a unit. Some of the pros, they're saying that it is essentially a MacBook. They even put GPS inside, which is cool. They say it has a very bright screen. Handwriting recognition works well, and the screen is scratch and fingerprint free and fairly durable. So that's the pro side. Some of the cons, it's heavier than a MacBook, obviously, because there's more components. It's also because rather than aluminum, they use magnesium for the case. And it's aircraft-grade magnesium alloy. As I recall, Apple is using aircraft-grade aluminum. And my concern is, what are we making the aircraft out of? If Apple's taking all the aluminum and all the magnesium. There's not even anyone to laugh. Okay, we're moving on. So it's not quite as portable as you might like. The pen is great, but there's no keyboard, so you have to use the pen for input. And Gizmodo feels it's a bit expensive, starting at $22.79 with another model at $24.79. And one kind of big con, depending on how you want to use it, there's no way to orient the screen vertically, so you have to use it in a horizontal position. I got to think that might be something they could fix with a software update. For those of you who use PayPal with Safari, you might want to stop doing that, but I would wait until after you press the donate button there underneath the screen. There's a donate button. Feel free. But just to cover your ears while I tell you this story, if you plan on doing that. PayPal has advised users to stop using Safari for transactions. And the reason for this, and it's a problem that also extends to Camino, there are some anti-phishing technology measures in the other major browsers. And just the fact that the way the URL is displayed, the full URL, is a little bit different within Safari and Camino, which both use WebKit from Apple. But at any rate, the point is that it's easier for people to redirect you to a fake site that looks like it's PayPal in order to get your information. So they suggest using Firefox, or perhaps you could buy a PC with PayPal and then use the PC. But you couldn't buy it because you couldn't use the browser. Huh. That's a sticky wicket, as we used to say in my native England. I'm not from England. I just made that up. That's all the news I have. Do you have any news, folks? No? No? Camera? Do you have any news? No? Okay. You're shaking no, but not enough for anyone to notice. Thanks to the image stabilization. Thank you, Sony. So that's about it. Again, next week, Adam Ford will be back. He will have a tan. Ladies, put it in the iCal. Adam's back with a tan next week. Don't forget, it's also your chance to win. Next week, I believe we're giving away an iTunes gift card to the iTunes Music Store. So you want to tune in for that. And don't forget, in order to win that, it will be based upon something that was said or something that happened on tonight's show. So keep that in mind. And again, keep the digital lifestyle open this week in a tab or something. Put us in your bookmarks because it's a busy week for Apple News. We've got the shareholders meeting tomorrow, and then on Thursday, the Software Developers Kit Roadmap, as Apple is calling it, and we'll have all the details for you on that as well. And we'll go live. If it warrants a live broadcast, we'll do that, of course, as well. Now then, time for me to leave you for the evening. Always like to leave with a clip. So this evening, it's an oldie, literally, but a goodie. This is the classic clip of 91-year-old Auntie Kath giving an iPhone demo. I'll see you next week, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.